Welcome back to the Gemara in Bava Kama, Daf Pei Hey Amud Aleph. We'll start from Amar Mar. Amar Mar, literally this means the master said, but it refers to something that was taught in a Breita that was quoted earlier. We actually didn't read the part of the Gemara where this was quoted, but this brings us back to a piece from a Breita so that the Gemara can analyze it. So Amar Mar, it was said in a Breita, Yachol afil shelo machmat hamaka. You might think that the injurer has to pay even if sores develop or some infection develops not as a result of the wound. Talmud Lamar, therefore the Torah teaches us rak. The pasuk says rak shivto yiten v'rapo yirapeh, and that word rak is what it's called a miyud. It limits the scope of the pasuk, and so that teaches us that only in cases where the sores or the infection developed as a result of the original wound does the injurer have to pay the medical bills of the injured. So we'll say all of this is really a statement, and it's a breita, but we'll say it's both. It's a statement, it's a quote from a breita. Shelo machmat hamakeh ba'ikra. Does a pasuk really need to come to teach us something about a case where the sores developed not on account of the original wound? In other words, why would you ever think that the injurer was responsible for secondary infections, etc., that weren't a result of the original wound? The whole point of the injurer paying the medical bills is that it has to do with that first wound, and if it's not from the original wound, why would you ever think that they would have to pay? Why would you need a verse? Bai is require. Why would you require a verse to teach you that? Amri, the response would be, meaning those of the Breita would say, Mai shelo machmat hamakeh. What does it mean that the sores or the infection came up not as a result of the original wound? Kidatanya. As we learned in a Breita, here's the kind of case they're talking about. Harei she'avar al divrei harofeh. Behold, what happened is that the injured, the person who was suffering from a wound, violated the words of the doctor. They didn't follow doctor's orders. V'achal dvash, and they ate honey. O kol minei mitzika, or all kinds of sweet things. Mipnei shedvash v'chol minei mitzika kashin lamakeh. Because, apparently, they believed, medically speaking, that honey and all kinds of sweet things are bad for wounds. V'ha'ala makato gargutni. And the wound developed a condition called gargutni. The Gemara is going to explain what this is. It developed a condition called gargutni, but not as a direct result of the original wound, only because the person didn't follow doctor's orders. So you might have thought that since this did result from the wound, that the injurer is responsible, but actually it only resulted from the wound because the injured didn't listen to doctor's advice. And so the pasuk comes to teach us, the word rak is coming to teach us that in that kind of case, the injurer is not responsible. In other words, not only is the injurer only responsible if it results from the wound, they're only responsible if it results from the original wound and the person was following doctor's orders. But if the person wasn't following doctor's orders, then even if it results from that wound, that's not going to be the responsibility of the injurer to pay back. So all of this is the answer. Kidatanya, of course, is a quote from a Breita. And this is all the answer to the question of why did we need a pasuk to tell us that the injurer isn't responsible if the infection didn't result from the original wound. Yachol yeheh chayav l'rapoto, Talmud Lamar, rak. So you might have thought, again, this just reinforces the point, you might have thought that you're still obligated to heal that person, right, in the case where they didn't follow doctor's advice and so therefore they got a secondary infection. But Talmud Lamar, therefore the pasuk teaches us rak, And so we're taught that in that situation, the injurer is not responsible to pay for the medical bills of the injured. Now here's a tangent that the Gemara goes on a little bit, just to clarify a word. My gargutni. What is gargutni? Apparently, the Gemara does not know this word either. What is this condition? Amar Abaye, nata krichta. And Abaye says the answer is, it is dead flesh. That's what it is. Mai asite. What can you do to cure it? What's the cure for this gargutni condition? So this is also a sort of tangential, clarifying question. Ahala v'kira v'kalba. And the answer is aloe, wax, and resin. Resin, which apparently is being found in wine barrels. These are the, traditional cures for this medical problem. V'i amar le, and if he says to him, we'll see in a minute who says to who, if he says to him, asiach ana, I will heal you. So clearly this is the injurer speaking to the injured, saying, I don't need to pay for your medical bills, I'll heal you myself, I could be a doctor. Amar le, then the injured person should say back to the injurer, Damita like Arya Rava. You seem to me like a lion that's lying in wait for someone. In other words, this is not a good idea. I think you're just out to get me. Right? This is not an arrangement that's going to work. Let's say that it's not exactly a question, but it is sort of a proposal of a situation. And the response should be, or the answer should be, it's not going to work. That's not a good idea. V'i amar le, maitina asya de magan b'magan. And if he says to him, I'll bring a doctor who will heal for free. In other words, again, the injurer speaking to the injurer speaking to the injured says, I have a good idea. Instead of paying for your medical care, I can bring a doctor from someplace else who is such a good doctor and they'll heal for free. It won't cost anybody anything. I'll say again that this is sort of like the proposition. Amar le, the injured should say back to him, Asya de magan b'magan, magan shaveh. A doctor who heals for free is worth nothing, right? Or maybe it would be better to say a doctor who charges nothing is worth nothing. In other words, also not a good idea. You should be getting your own trusted medical care, not listening to the injurer. V'i amar, and if he says, Ma'itinu lecha asi rachika. If he says, I will bring you a doctor from far away. I'll bring you maybe, someone who I know who's a doctor, who comes from someplace else, and that's the doctor who will heal you. Maybe because Rashi suggests that maybe this is going to be a very cheap doctor who he knows. Amar le, asi rachika ena avira. So you, the injured, should respond to him. A doctor from far away can make an eye go blind. In other words, right? This is not a good idea either. V'i amar le, and if he says to him, this is a response. V'i amar le, he'ach havli lididi ve'ana masina nafshe. If he says to him, why don't you give it to me and I will cure myself? In other words, in this case, the injured says to the injurer, why don't you just give me the money and I will hire a doctor for myself? Amar le, so you should say back to him, you the injurer this time should say back to him, Pashata b'nafshecha v'shakalta minai tvei. You will neglect yourself and you'll collect from me twice. In other words, how do I know that the amount of money that you're going to take is what it will cost? You'll tell me it costs, $5,000 and you'll, kind of neglect yourself. You won't actually get $5,000 in medical care and you'll pocket $2,500. V'i amar le, kotzli miketz. And if the injurer then says to him, okay, so set a fixed amount, right? Tell me, it can't be more than X, and I'll take the cash and hire my own doctor. Amar le, kol sheken de pashata b'nafshecha, v'karu li shor hamazik. He says, well, then even the more so, the injurer will say, then even the more so, that you'll be negligent with yourself. Right? If I say you can only have, $5,000 total, and you really, really want that money, so you'll be negligent with yourself. You won't get the proper medical care, and they'll call me a damaging ox. In other words, I'll get a reputation for doing damage and then not compensating it, and I really don't want that. So all different kinds of scenarios. Some start with the injurer speaking, and some start with the injured speaking. We'll pause there.